Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. Your Tuesday show is slightly different today because I, of course, am going to be hosting today. And by luck, we have our Japanese correspondent, Liam Carrigan, on the other end of the stream. Good timing, Liam. Talk to us about this morning's announcement by the club.
Well, first of all, my camera's a wee bit dodgy today, so if I look a bit max headroom, I'm sorry, but there's a throwback for you.
Lovely wee reference back to my childhood. Yes.
But the announcement, it actually came, we were out shopping this afternoon, I think it was about 5 o'clock Japan time, and I picked up the phone and someone had posted one of those, one of the videos that the Celtic players have been doing with the they're trying to learn Japanese, and it was like Jota trying to write his name in kana, and it was quite good, quite well observed. It's good because just to comment on that, I slag off Celtic's marketing department quite a lot, and that could very easily have been cringy and bordering on racist, but it wasn't at all. It was done in the right sense. It was funny. It wasn't patronising. And as a Japanese speaker, the elements of Japanese that were in it were spot on. So that was another thing,
The only thing I think they missed a trick on is when Hatate appeared behind him. I thought they were going to hide the sushi, move it to the side of the table. Has there been any chat over there, Liam, about potential? I read Wolves might be involved. Any potential opponents?
Opponents, not so much yet. The main issue seems to be around venues, because obviously they're going to want to play a game in Yokohama because that was Ange's old club and Daizen's old club as well. Mm-hmm. But then you've also got, the Kobe connection with Kyogo. But and that would make for a bit of a glamour fixture if we did play Vissel Kobe, because they still have Iniesta on their books. No, I think, what I'm hoping is that there's going to be a game in Tokyo and a game in Yokohama, because both of those are just, within a couple of hours of where I am. If it's Osaka, I'm going to have to make a weekend of it, So, again, not necessarily a bad thing, but the wife might not be too happy.
Well, talking about the good lady, it will give you and your wife the opportunity to go to a Celtic game, and it'll be the first time that your wife has seen Celtic as well, Liam.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's going to be just to get slightly serious for a minute, it is going to be quite emotional for me personally going to see Celtic again, because the last time I saw Celtic in the flesh was actually back in 2012 when we beat Barcelona. And I was with my dad and my uncle Frank, who we sadly lost to COVID last year. So it's going to feel a bit strange being at a game without him. But, as they say, one out, one in. My Uncle Frank is not going to be there this time, but my wife will be there for the first time. So there is that. There's always a positive in these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is with Celtic is that kind of memory and that kind of emotion that you've just been speaking about there. I think we all share it in one way or another. But that introduction of the club to someone else close to you like that is going to be happening to so many people in Japan. For me, that's why it's important. People talk about the marketing of it, and you and I have discussed it on here, Liam. And of course, that's important. Of course, the income streams are always important to a club like Celtic. But so too is the legacy, and you want that to spread far and wide. You want Celtic strips to be seen more and more prominently over where you are.
Yeah, as I've said before, we've had teams like Manchester City, who I went to see play against Ange when he was still at Yokohama. We've had Barcelona, we've had Chelsea, and the kids that I teach, they sometimes turn up in their Barcelona top or their Bayern Munich top or whatever. And I think, God, just for the sake of better marketing, that could and should be a Celtic top. So hopefully, if we have a successful tour in July or August, start the autumn term in September, I'm hoping I might see a few Celtic tops at school,
Oh, definitely, because you're seeing the kids and what they're wearing, and we've actually got a comment coming in here which I'm going to link into what you're currently wearing. Celtic follower on YouTube, welcome to the show. Afternoon all, lots of chat today. Don Robertson, I'm afraid we are going to have to chat about him. The Japanese tour, Kyogo £15 million interest, Barkas full money recoup. I'll tell you, Barkas was, in inverted commas, a goalie. You're wearing a goalkeeper strip. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Right, this is the Japan goalkeeper shirt from the 1998 World Cup. Japan's first World Cup and Scotland's last to date, unfortunately. Something of a real kind of bit of Japanese footballing history. It took me 20 years to track down one of these, believe it or not. I'm a collector of shirts, as you know, and this was one that I really had to push the boat out to finally get a hold of one, and especially in my size, because I'm not a small guy, you know. It was, it's a very special shirt, and I thought, what better chance to break it out than on the day we announced the Japan tour.
Yeah, it's got Partick Thistle vibes about it. Is it Asics? I think it's Asics.
It is Asics. Actually, interestingly enough, just to go on a bit of a tangent here, the Asics shirts were worn at the World Cup, but there is also an Adidas top, which is the exact same template, but different colours. The main colour is green, and the flames are red and blue.
I remember seeing Shane McGowan wearing a shirt, and I'm talking a button dress shirt, black with flames just like that, by the way. Look it up. I'm sure he was being interviewed by Frank Skinner at the time, the one and only Shane McGowan. Yeah, as Celtic Follower was saying, loads to talk about. We're obviously going to kick off with Japan now that it's been announced, and we've spoken about it, Liam, over the last few months. In any case, you're delighted. Loads of Celtic fans will travel over as well. I was speaking to JP this morning, and he's trying to figure out a way how he could actually get over. It would be some experience, Liam, and you'll find yourself. You're going to be something of a travel guide, I'm sure, to quite a few people coming over.
Well, I will say that now, right? I'm not on Twitter just because of who owns Twitter, but we won't go there. But if anybody who is watching does want any advice about travelling to Japan or what to do while they're over here, besides the Celtic games, feel free to drop a question into our Facebook group or leave a comment here, and I'll try and get back to them as soon as I can. I want to help as many people as I can who are going to come over here, because I've been here most of my adult life, so I'd like to think I know the place pretty well.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, before we go any further, and before I forget, as is a possibility, Liam is a full-time member of the Celtic Down Under crew, and obviously you appear every Tuesday on our show, but where can we find Celtic Down Under, Liam?
Celtic Down Under, we have our own shows that we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I am part of the Wednesday crew, so if you tune in tomorrow, you will be able to catch us then. We normally go out at, I'm trying to think what time it would be in Scotland. It's 5:30 Japan time, so that would be, I think, either 10 or 11:30 in the morning in Scotland.
I think it is 11:30 actually, because Jared was saying it finishes just as we're kicking off normally.
Aye, that's right. So as another wee throwback, tune in tomorrow, same bat time, different bat channel, and you'll get our show.
You definitely will. We're obviously going to be speaking about the victory. By the way, again, a massive shout out to that mug, which has to be the best mug we've seen on, and there's been a few mugs on Acsom, but the best mug we've seen. But another shout out to the very generous Celtic fan who handed me that at one of the Gracie's gigs back in March. Very, very generous, and it's been brilliant over the last wee while to be meeting a lot of the people that tune in, a lot of folk who don't actually comment, coming up and having a wee chat with myself and some of the other Acsom troops. It's brilliant to meet you. Thank you all for your support. We're about 500 strong actually on the stream right now. We'll bring up Edward Moore, who is commenting on YouTube. Afternoon, guys. Looking forward to the Japan and South Korea tour. Celtic could sign another Japanese player or South Korean to unveil while they are on tour. Yeah, they absolutely could. And we are going to be talking about, the plans for next season. Ange has already been talking about them, which very, very positive in looking ahead to next season. But we'll start off with the Rangers game. We went into that game. I think if you watch the pre-match back, we were all pretty confident. Myself, Liam, Lawrence, Laura, and Kevin, all very confident. There were scoreline predictions of 3-1, 4-0, 4-1, etc. Didn't quite go to plan. But what was your overall thoughts on the game first of all, Liam?
I mean, apart from that one chance where they hit the post and then, Sakala really should have buried the rebound. No, I think we were in control for 80-90% of the game. I really do think that even when they had spells of possession, they weren't really hurting us. Again, the narrative is going to be the gap is closed, but look at it this way. We've played, in the last 5 games we've played Rangers, beat them 4 times, drew with them once, and I don't think we have played our best football in any of those games.
No.
So,
I agree with that.
That's the thing. We've basically beaten them 4 times and drew with them once with, I think, effectively one hand tied behind our back. So I really don't... The gap is as narrow as we allow it to be, quite frankly.
And the thing as well, we spoke about yesterday, was the fact that Celtic under Ange Postecoglou have been an absolute joy to watch, Liam. They're thrilling, entertaining, the amount of flair players, some of whom we'll be talking about on today's show. It's the Celtic way. That's always been, entertain, as Bertie would say when he's talking about Johnston, and we have been entertained. But I think what these games have shown, and a big part of that is down to the style of the opposition, is that sometimes you've got to battle, sometimes you've got to defend. But if you come through, like you say, unscathed in those games, then you've done that part of the game well as well. It doesn't mean to say that the gap is shorter than Celtic think it is. It doesn't mean to say that Rangers are any better than they think they are. It's just the fact that in games like that, it's going to be a different approach. And, both Ange and Callum spoke about it, and they used the facets of the game, the defensive qualities, the battling qualities. When we need to do it, we can also do that side of the game, the dirty side of the game, Liam.
Yeah, and also, I think it speaks volumes that Carter Vickers was man of the match for me, and I think he did get the official man of the match as well. He just was an absolute boss. He really, the one thing that worried me slightly going into the game was the fact that Goldson was back playing for them, because he is their best player as far as I'm concerned. He's their most consistent performer. And he's, on his game, he's a pretty decent central defender. Pretty decent goalkeeper as well, but that's another story. But, I think the fact that Carter Vickers played, so well and outshone him to that extent shows the gulf in class. Our best defender was pitched directly against their best defender, and their best defender went to sleep for our goal, whereas our best defender made a series of heroic tackles and blocks throughout the game. And yeah, we thoroughly deserved our win, and really it could have been more.
No, you're right, it could have been. And when called upon in big games like this, I think that as a tag team, Carter Vickers and Starfelt have been phenomenal in these games. And if one of them's maybe dropping a little bit below that standard, the other one steps up. And I think in the last game, we saw Starfelt stepping up. In this game, I thought the two of them were magnificent. There was a part of the game before the heroics that you're speaking about there about Carter Vickers, where Starfelt was a standout. And then Carter Vickers stepped up to the plate. And the both of them were fantastic. I don't know if you were a 1990s WWF fan, but talking about tag teams, it was like The Rock. It was like a dream tag team that would never happen. The Rock and the Ultimate Warrior, Liam. Because... The Rock being Carter Vickers, of course, and the Ultimate Warrior being Starfelt. I thought the pair of them were outstanding.
Well, Rowdy Roddy Piper was my guy, so I object to him not getting a mention, but there you go.
With a wee tartan kilt, obviously. Yes.
The world's most famous Scottish Canadian.
That's right, yeah. That's right up my street. That's my kind of era. And we're talking about, WWF wrestling, Hulkamania, Beatlemania. There's going to be a bit of the old Kyogo and Ange mania when we come over to Japan as well, Liam.
Oh yeah. I hope they've got all manner of T-shirts, and I hope they bring back those. I was looking through my closet the other day, and I dug out my old Celtic scarf from 2006, which has Celtic written in like Japanese katakana characters. I really hope they bring back that scarf and start selling it again, because that's a wee piece of history there.
Aye, definitely. They definitely should. I want to talk a wee bit more about Carter Vickers and Starfelt. I think that for 2 seasons they have been Ange's Rock, to go back to that reference. And with regards to where we go next, which is, Ange has been asked that this week, you're looking at the two centre-halves. I think it's time that at least one of them, obviously, Carter Vickers being the one that's been mentioned, needs a few games to recuperate. He's going to go and get his operation. The timing is perfect for that, Liam. And by the way, that's no disrespect to Inverness Carlisle Thistle final. We'll come to that. But the timing is very, very good for us and for Carter Vickers at the moment.
Yeah, get the Hearts game out the way and get the League One, and then we can rest a few players. Because there's... The good thing is, if we... Now, this is how I would do it, but then again, I'm not Ange, right? I would play near enough a reserve team at Ibrox. Because by that point, the league will be won. There is no need to risk any injuries to the likes of Kyogo, who, they tried once again on Saturday to take him out and failed.
Big time.
I really don't see why we should risk any of our major players for what is ultimately a meaningless game. But then at the same time, you've got guys like Rocco Vata, you've got all these players coming into the team who I think are looking at, okay, here's 3 or 4 games I can play to try and get into the squad for the cup final. Mm-hmm. That's the carrot there, Haksabanovic is another one who has been on the fringes but is going to want to be a bigger player next season, we would hope. And he needs to prove that he's worthy of that. So I really, I think that it's an opportunity. And again, just to use the Ibrox game as a case in point, it's a no-lose scenario for us, assuming that we take care of Hearts, right? I mean, I'm not wanting to write that off because Tynecastle is a difficult place to go. But if we can take care of that with a full-strength team, then you could play 4 or 5 fringe players at Ibrox, and then they have the motivation of saying, well, look, if you do something special in a derby, that's you get one foot in the door for the cup final, right? Mm-hmm. And if Celtic get beat, oh well, it was just a reserve team. But if we manage to get a result with half of our team missing, imagine the levels of banter that will flow,
Well, this is the thing, right? And it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to see through the rivalry, the fact that it's a derby. It's great to get it right up them, and that's why we are smiling on a Tuesday after the game and all of that. But in terms of preparation, I can see some merit in that. I really can. With regards to, right, let's get some game time in the fringe players' legs. And you never know. If you get one of them, Liam, that comes out of that as an absolute star performer and they're in with a shout for the final, then it's job done. And yeah, as you say, we've still got Tynecastle just round the corner. We've also got a Scottish Cup final to look forward to. And I think that with regards to the Scottish Cup final, we've been talking for a wee while on the show about world records and this kind of thing. I mean, 8 trebles, unbelievable. And when you consider that 5 of them potentially will be within the last 7 years. I mean, domination doesn't come anywhere near that. Stephen Donnelly, you're on the YouTube. And by the way, we're head towards 700 strong on the live stream. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. If you're enjoying the Acsom chat, the Celtic chat, give us a big thumbs up. It works wonders for us on the YouTube channel, and we really do appreciate it. Stephen Donnelly, hail, guys. Hope you're still enjoying the euphoria from the weekend. We certainly are. And Keith Oakton is tuning in from a sunny Plymouth. Welcome to you as well. Tony Cassidy, also sunny. Is it sunny out there? I've not seen it since I got in this morning. Rutherglen, I'll need to have a look at that. And thanks for coming along over the weekend, Tony. It was great to see you. Didn't have a chance to get a catch up with you, unfortunately. Joseph McGonigal, 13 points clear, treble incoming. Life is just wonderful. Yeah, it's incredible what Celtic can do to your mood, Liam.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cup final. I've been hearing a lot of Inverness fans on the socials saying, oh, we're your bogey team and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, they will be treated with the respect that Ange treats every opponent with.
Well, I'll just go on record now as saying that Inverness Cali are a team that I've got a lot of time for. I've had dealings with them in the past. In terms of my dad used to supply them with staff, and more recently I ordered a shirt from them a couple of years ago, which they did as part of a charity venture, and I found their commercial department to be absolutely superb. Emailed as soon as the thing was shipped. personally contacting me to let me know the stages of the process until the shirt got to Japan. Just for a supposedly small club, they've got a very professional approach to things, and they make fans feel appreciated. So
no, that's brilliant to hear. And obviously, we got Ryan Christie from them as well.
Well, aye. But to those fans, I'm not going to slag them off. I'm going to say that they will be given the ultimate respect, because you don't get to a cup final if you're a Diddy team. It doesn't matter what league you're in. You have to play good football and beat good teams to get to a cup final, and they've done that. So they have earned the respect. I still hope we wipe the floor with them when the day comes, but that's not. It's nothing against them personally. It's just whoever is in Celtic's way needs to be swept aside. But no, I really I'm pleased for them. Hope they enjoy the day out, and I hope it's a good day for everybody.
You were talking about being swept aside, and with regards to that, I think that Ange will look at the situation, and he doesn't have these results in his locker because he wasn't part of Celtic. I don't even think they'll come on the radar. If the fact that Inverness have knocked us out a couple of cups, Ross County have done the same. We had that horrific result against Clyde. All that kind of stuff was in a past era. Ange will approach this in the way that he approaches every single game. And one thing that he'll approach it with is respect, Liam.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that have happened after the game against Rangers where I feel Ange has shown nothing but, the utmost class in the way that he shows the opponent respect. So there's been a few wee things. He was asked about the lucky man. We've got the print up on the wall there by the Verve. He was asked about being a lucky man, right? And again, it would be easy. There's your platform, Ange. You've just won the semi-final. Get it right up them. He didn't do that. He absolutely didn't do that. He went into the fact that he's been in the game 25 years and he's earned the right to be offered a job like the Celtic job. That's not luck. He says it's not my first job. And obviously he has spoken time and time again about the fact that you don't win trebles through luck. You don't win doubles through luck. Here's some of his words. I was really impressed with this. This isn't my first job. If it was my first job, maybe I'd be lucky. But it's not. It's 25 years of hard work. I have to spend that money, talking about the budget, and I can get it wrong. Many have with bigger clubs than ours. And this is the thing people tend to forget. Having money is one thing. Spending it wisely is that's a different ballpark altogether, Liam, and he's done that.
You have these managers who, and it's wrong to pick out individuals because the whole group of them, but I'll use, for example, Sam Allardyce, right? What has Sam Allardyce ever won in football? Nothing of any great note, right? Yet he could walk into a number of jobs at sort of mid-level English teams right now if he wanted to, right? There's these managers who just manage to, by luck or by whatever, they fall into this pattern of failing upwards. Davy Moyes is another one. What the hell he's still doing at West Ham, I've no idea, right? But, there's just this trend of failing upwards. And we used to have it in Scotland as well, up until fairly recently. You would have your Jimmy Calderwoods and whatever, who would never win anything, but whenever a job came up, they were always the first foot in the door for it, Yeah. And again, no disrespect to him personally, it's just a recurring theme that I've noticed with the football going on. And Ange, being from Australia, has been outside of that. So he has had to earn, through a hell of a lot of hard work and great results, something which the Sam Allardyces of this world just get handed to them. So I really do think that it's like he has done really well because he's a great manager, but also in spite of a system that is designed to keep people like him out.
You're right. You're right.
It is a closed shop, and you have to really smash the door in to get into that closed shop, and Ange has done that. So, yeah, I hope he paves the way for more managers to do that, because Australia, Asia in general, there is no shortage of talent over here, both in terms of players and managers. And I really do hope that Ange is a trailblazer in that regard, not just for Celtic, but just for the sake of Scottish and English football needs freshening up. It's the same old faces every season, and it's getting really turgid and really boring. So Ange is a breath of fresh air. Any neutral who's not a Celtic fan, I would challenge them to look at Celtic and say that is not a good team to watch.
No, you're right. And by the way, going back to when he was announced as a Celtic manager, there was two different elements to it. I feel at that point, Liam, you had that snobbery that we know existed in relation to what's he ever done, or where has he done it, and well, what he's done. There's a huge list of things that he's achieved in the game as a manager. But where's he done it? He's not done it anywhere, And there was that attitude because it wasn't in Europe. But the other issue at that time, and I think it was even more frustrating for us on Acsom, was the fact that we had lost confidence in the board to make the right decision. So when they made the decision for Ange, a lot of the perspective was skewed by the fact that we had lost confidence with the board because of what they had done the previous season, and then they had failed to get the number one candidate. So that kind of fed into it a wee bit, the cynicism. And I remember, guys coming in from Celtic Down Under and saying, "No, wait a minute, guys, this is the real deal. Ange Postecoglou is the real deal." And it didn't take long for every single person to get on board with that. The thing as well that he was asked about was the comments by Neil Banfield, who, when I read his name for the first time, in fact, he was unhappy with Ange. I had to check who he was. And the comment that Ange made in relation to upsetting some people at Rangers was, if I was going to worry about what other people say, I wouldn't have lasted a month here. What a great way to deal with all the nonsense and all the chaos and all the racket around about you, isn't it?
Yeah. We're not going to put letters into the SFA demanding an explanation for why that comment was made, are we? It's they're a strange bunch over Ibrox Way, and I really don't get why they do what they do. Not to get political, but I do liken it to the situation in the US you have now with certain people worried about being replaced by minorities. I think too many people at Ibrox have had it their own way for so long that any semblance of equality is immediately put down as suppression. They cannot tell the difference, and this is like it's a mental failing with them, honestly.
No, you're absolutely right. On a much kind of lesser scale, but with the same kind of principles. When you expect to get the decision, for example, often that's something again that would react in slow reactions, people not reacting on the field of play, and that's something I think that is prominent within this Rangers side. The officiating has been brought up, and by the way, we're not going to go in studs up. We know that there's been a referee who has received death threats this season, and we're certainly not going to be calling anybody cheats or any of this kind of stuff. But in terms of the performance of Don Robertson, and yeah, he was thrown in at the deep end because the injury to Willie Collum, I thought there was so many decisions that he completely missed or just let go. In the first stages of the game, Liam, Lundstrom on Kyogo, that was, for me, that was the moment where you take control of the game as the ref and you take action on that. Later on in the game, Ben Davies hits Kyogo in the neck. You've got a Barisic dive that goes unpunished just before half-time, a Barisic handball, and bearing in mind he's on a yellow when he commits these two offences. And I did think that it was a really, really poor decision. But the decision not to award Matt O'Reilly a free kick was a poor decision, but we were the ones who reacted to it. And that's where we get this tagline today, Ange's "We Never Stop" mantra. No more so have I seen it epitomised as I did by Maeda and Jota at that very moment in that game.
Yeah. I mean, I think in our chat group, at the time, I actually said Maeda for that goal is "We Never Stop" personified, because that's exactly what it was. 5 of them had stopped because they either thought they were getting a free kick or they thought play was being held up. Dyson was like, right, I'll take that, thank you very much, and puts it over for Jota, and it's 1-0. I mean, I've actually seen, like, the more fair-minded amongst the Rangers support, a few of their YouTube equivalents to us, whatever, they've been saying, look, play to the whistle. That is like schoolboy football stuff. How can we not get that? They recognise that failing. And, to those guys, I have a bit of respect, because it's not like, oh, Celtic were lucky, whatever. It's like, we totally lost the plot on that goal, and they did. But it still takes class for Maeda and Jota to link up the way they did to take advantage of it. And there are very few players in the Scottish League with the pace and the sharpness of Maeda to pounce on that the way he did. That's the sort of thing, that's exactly what he does. Every time I see him play for Japan, he's a constant nuisance to the last defender. And that was just the ultimate payoff at the weekend there.
It was. You were talking about, you've got the reaction first and foremost. He reacts, unbelievable reactions. The first touch to change direction was superb, and the second touch on the turn for the ball into Jota, by which time Jota's probably got 3 yards on the right back, James Tavernier, whose face is an absolute picture, Liam, by this stage. And JP pointed out yesterday that if you watch the unique angle version of the goal on Celtic TV, you actually, and after the show yesterday, I looked at it, you can see Ryan Kent, he's walking away just as Maeda nips in to get it. He thinks he's going up to the halfway line. Unbelievable reactions. There's a few performances I want to talk about the weekend as well, which I think are going to be pivotal as we move on. One of them was something of a cameo, and it was Tony Ralston coming in for the injured Alistair Johnston. Interestingly enough, Tony Ralston's still only 24 years of age. Been around forever.
It's incredible.
I know. But this season, he's only played 1,000 minutes over 13 appearances, and 36 of those minutes were against Rangers. I felt that, we can laugh and joke about players on social media and all that, but every now and again, you get an absolute belter of a post. And I'm not on Instagram. I'm not sure I should be on Instagram. I'm definitely not on it. And Tony Ralston puts out a wee post that puts Cantwell right back in his box. I thought it was great to see him getting some game time, and not the best circumstances, but it will be good to see him getting a few games in the first team as well, because of Johnston's unfortunate injury.
Well, he's earned it. Ralston has earned it. He's not been a first pick this season. First behind Juranovic and then behind Johnston. But there's not been the slightest hint of whinging about it. He's got on with it. He's done his job professionally. He's Celtic through and through. He knows what the club is all about. He knows what's expected. He goes in there every day for training with a superb attitude. He's a well-liked guy from what I hear. And, no, fair play to him. He has earned whatever game time he gets from here on out, because his commitment to the cause cannot be questioned.
No, I totally agree. And he likes Tynecastle. He's a performer at Tynecastle. I do believe that certain players are suited to certain venues. They do like for a striker scoring at certain venues. I think Ralston will be welcome back into that side, and it'll be flawless for him, and I'm glad to see him back. I want to talk about another couple of the Japanese players, though, because going into the game at the weekend, we were talking about the midfield trio. We were also talking about the wings. Then it was kind of confirmed that Hatate and Jota and even Abada had been training leading up to the game. I must admit, going into the game, I was a wee bit concerned about Hatate, but also I had been so impressed with Iwata since he came in, and in particular in the 3-2 game against Rangers, that I probably would have set up, what do I know, how would I set up with Iwata starting, McGregor and O'Reilly, Hatate starts, and Iwata comes in. But do you think this is an opportunity for a player like Iwata, and also for Kobayashi to maybe replace Carter Vickers, for these players to get a good run in the team as well, Liam? And if so, what should we expect from them? Because these are two guys you know pretty well. Right.
First of all, Iwata is one of the best holding midfielders to come out of Japan in quite a long time. People over here are making, now, again, I don't want to oversell things here, but people are making comparisons to Nakata, right, who was the first Japanese player to really break out of the J-League and make a big name for himself in Europe. People are saying he's on that level, and I think he might well be in the years ahead. He has superb distribution from the holding midfield position, likes a tackle, he's a physical presence. when we say Japanese footballers, most people think of somebody like Kyogo. They think of a wee, slight, pacey, but maybe slightly lightweight kind of guy. Whereas, Iwata's getting the nickname the Tank, and it's well earned, So he is definitely going to be a breakout star next season, if he isn't already. Kobayashi, I believe, in the fullness of time, will supplant Starfelt as Carter Vickers' partner in central defence, assuming we can hang on to Carter Vickers. I believe, Starfelt and Carter Vickers have a better partnership at the moment, but that's purely because they've played together for as long as they have.
Yeah.
And it's not a slight on Starfelt. I think he's a much better player than a lot of people give him credit for. But I believe Kobayashi has the potential to be better. And I think next season we will see that. He needs game time, he needs experience, he needs to get comfortable playing with another central defensive partner and building the same partnership that Starfelt and Carter Vickers have built. Plus, having a natural left footer at left centre back is something we've not really had recently. Yeah. So I think that is, particularly in Europe, that is going to be a massive advantage, where that split second timing, that extra second that Starfelt would take to switch it over to his right foot, Kobayashi can just first time hoof it into the crowd if need be. That is going to be a big, big difference that you'll notice, particularly in games that are played at the higher tempo than we're used to.
See, the thing as well, we're kind of looking at ahead to next season. They're talking about potentially what the team might look like. And Ange has also been talking about that. He's talking about every transfer window he goes into, he wants to come out stronger. That sounds like a bit of a cliche, but when Ange says it and you look at the transfer windows that he's been involved in, we have come out stronger. And we're also at a stage as well where if he's fine-tuning certain elements of a team that's already working, and then you're getting a greater depth. I mean, I was looking at the squad this morning. I always remember, looking on the back of the programme, and our squad was like twice the size of just about every other squad for the team that we were playing. I think it's been fine-tuned, and a big part of that is down to the fact that we've got a dozen players out on loan at the moment. I get that. Yeah. But if those, or the vast majority of them, can be traded and then we bring in 3 or 4 players of quality, then you're looking at a situation where we really do have not just the depth, but the real strength and the quality within that team. But one of the biggest elements, Liam, is if we go into a transfer window in the summer and we lose one, and I'm talking a player who you would consider as a first teamer, and let's say Abada, because I know that he's been in and out of the side this season. He's a player that I really, really like. I think he's actually got, for me, I think he's still got development time at Celtic to undertake, but I don't know if he wants to. I thought, he might be one of these young players who wants to move a wee bit quicker than he should. But even if, and Ange's given us the confidence, if somebody like Abada was to go, and he's already said it, we've already identified players, moves are all underway, all that kind of thing. You are confident that he will bring someone in of equal, if not better quality.
I mean, I personally, I think Abada is for the off at the end of the season. Because the current situation with him very much mirrors what happened with Juranovic after the World Cup. Obviously, there is, there's no public drama as such, but clearly in the background, Juranovic had said to Ange, look, I want to move on. And Ange was like, yep, fine, no problem. And he barely played a game after that, and he did get his move in January. I think Abada has probably had a similar conversation, and Ange has said, right, okay, no problem, but, I'm looking for players who want to be here, and if you don't want to be here, you're not going to be part of my plans for the rest of the season, because what's the point? That's my take on it. I could be wrong, but that's just, there are so many overlapping similarities between what happened with Juranovic and what's happening now with Abada.
But again, that approach, Liam, when you think about how we've dealt with situations like this in the past, and as a fan base, it's becoming normal for us to say, okay, like you just said there, if you don't want to be here, you move on, we replace you, and we move on as a football team, and we get stronger as well. And he has normalised it in a very short space of time. The fan base thinks differently now.
It speaks to the confidence that Ange has built in himself and in his team, that a player like Juranovic, who was one of our most valuable players in terms of financial, potential financial outlay, he can just say, right, okay, he's off. I'm bringing in this Canadian guy who, let's be honest, before the World Cup, none of us had heard of. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll give it a shot. And Johnston is now probably my top 5 favourite Celtic players at the moment. The guy's just become a cult hero overnight.
He definitely has. What about him at the end of the game?
Brilliant, with the crutches. Brilliant. Just hope his disability allowance people weren't watching,
Oh, superb with a big moon boot. He is turning into a cult hero. He's got all the makings of being an absolute cult hero, and a big part of that, I think, is we talk about this other element, this other facet of Celtic, and I think Johnston's got it in droves. I think that McGregor always had that. I would need to look at some of his previous performances. He's got it, where sometimes when it comes into the battle, you're looking at certain players. There was a moment where I think a ball was thrown at McGregor, probably by Lundstrom, actually, because he'd been taken down. There was 2 fouls in quick succession, McGregor being the second one, and they've thrown the ball at him. That pettiness, Liam, where McGregor's just looking at him and laughing at him, basically, which is the best way to deal with him. But there is that edge that we've got, and I think that we can see it in quite a few of the players. So, yeah, we can get carried away with the flair and the entertaining element of Ange's side, but we've got that edge when we need it, and I think Johnston's got it in spades. Is that why he's one of the cult players in this team?
Oh, absolutely. Well, for me, absolutely. We all like a player who's not afraid to get stuck in, especially when we play Rangers, and that's Johnston. He's just like he's all about it. You can tell he's a guy who's played ice hockey as a kid, because he's got that kind of slapshot enforcer look about him, Just, if you've ever seen the movie Slapshot, it's like it reminds me of one of those guys, the guys who just, let's go out and have some violence, and a hockey match might break out at some point,
Oh, superb. Now, Jim Davidson, welcome to the show. You're on the YouTube channel, and you're celebrating a treble in your avatar. Is there going to be another one in the Scottish Cup final? What's the story with the early kickoff? I was reading about this morning, Liam. So the chat is that there's a spineless organisation at the head of Scottish football who is allowing the Scottish Cup to apparently be kicked off early due to the broadcasters and us not wanting to clash with the FA Cup. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think calling them spineless is a bit insensitive, because jellyfish actually serve a biological purpose, But yeah, it's just a top to bottom problem with Scottish football leadership. We need to stop modelling ourselves on England, right? England is 10 times bigger than Scotland in terms of population. The football economy is exponentially bigger than Scotland will ever be. The TV money is just ridiculous. We should look to countries like Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium. Those are the sort of countries we should be putting a benchmark against, right? Because England we're not on the same planet as them in terms of finances or global appeal outside of Celtic and Rangers. So stop, it's like it's like a wee drunk man offering Superman a square go. It's like, there's no way this ends well for you, son, so don't bother. It's just like, why? Really what you should be doing is just looking to these smaller European nations, looking at how they bring in the commercial revenue that they do, despite not having anything like the TV exposure. We should start telling TV companies what we want if they want to deal with us, not the other way around, because that's what they do in England.
Yeah.
And another thing is that a potential revenue stream for Scottish football that has not been explored, which now I've got a personal stake in this because both of my parents have long-term disabilities. My mum's basically housebound. My dad doesn't get out as much as he used to, right? And as a result, the only time he and I can watch Celtic games is when they're on the telly. And I don't doubt there are probably tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of Celtic fans in the UK who are in that same position. Due to either finance or physical impairment, they cannot go to the stadium. Even if they could, maybe they couldn't get a ticket because we've got a waiting list a mile long, right, for season tickets. So this whole thing about we can't show games on telly if they're at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, scrap that, okay? It's crap. It has to go, right? The English teams are already ignoring it, right? So we should just forget that. If you are an Albion Rovers fan or an Airdrie fan or any other smaller Scottish club, you're going to go and see your team regardless of who's on the telly because that's your team, right? And if that means these clubs only get gates of 500 or 600, well, I'm sorry, that's the natural size of your club. Just adjust your finances accordingly. And Celtic and Rangers will still get their 50, 60,000 fans every week, whether the game's on the telly or not. But if every game is available on TV, be it via subscription or pay-per-view or whatever, it's extra revenue for the clubs. It's an opportunity for people like my dad to watch every game and not have to depend on me to try and find them a dodgy stream somewhere. And it just makes so much more sense. You know, I really hoped, and I'm really annoyed it didn't go this way, during the COVID situation, we had basically every game on the telly because it was a good way to get people to stay home, was to put every available game on the telly. We should have kept that because people like my dad, who were fortunate enough not to be affected by COVID, but definitely benefited from the mental health aspect of being able to watch every Celtic game despite being stuck in the house for most of the time.
Yeah.
So that is an area where we can generate more revenue. And if, like you say, if we didn't have such a spineless administration, the COVID rules would never have been rolled back. We would have kept it because it was a good source of income for all the clubs, not just Celtic and Rangers. And that is something that needs to be looked at. As I say, commercial sponsorship is a joke right now. The amount, no offence to them, why does Denmark bring in 5 times the revenue Scotland does? I mean, Brøndby and Copenhagen, can you name any other Danish teams? Because I'm struggling.
And it is down to the ineptitude of those, in the meetings, like you say, underselling the game. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But this is the showpiece of Scottish football. And for us to just bend over, rather than bending over backwards for the fans, then I think it's just typical. And the only way it's going to change is if fans make their feelings known to the respective clubs. But again, it's been something that we've discussed time and time again. And it will hold the clubs back. It will hold the game back in Scotland for as long as they are in charge. I want to talk a wee bit about the women's game that's coming up because I seen yesterday there was an announcement, a joint announcement. Sorry, before I do that, the Urban Culture, the sun is out. Everybody's telling me the sun's out. I'm going to have to check this out after the stream. Lunch is out and good Acsom company is here. Let's get it on. Wee bit of Marvin Gaye there, Urban Culture. Right, so Celtic are playing Glasgow City on the 11th of May. And it's free on the season ticket, which is fantastic. So that was the first announcement the other day. We've been saying that, Liam. Get the women's games on the season tickets. And what we're going to see is 3 groups. You've got the North Curve, the Green Brigade, and Boys Celtic occupying the Celtic end. Now, remember, we had representatives of the Celtic end, the collective, who wanted to make the entire end all standing. And this will give them, I feel, an opportunity to show us just what it looks like and how it can add to the atmosphere. It would be phenomenal if, I think the record's 8,000 Scottish attendance record for a women's game. How good would it be if we could break that for the game on the 11th?
Well, the women's team definitely deserve that level of support. I said as much to Natasha last week when we were talking about this. The women's team have been phenomenal this season in what they've done with the budget that they have and the resources that they have. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And with just a wee bit more investment and a wee bit more support from the fans, we could dominate the women's game to the extent we're currently dominating the men's game. And how good would that be to have, complete dominance of both leagues. I really think that would just be something special, and it would not take much. We're not asking. It's not going to cost 30, 40 million to do this. More like 2 or 3 million. But I think if the fans can turn out and we can get the result against City, or even if we don't get the result and there's still a big fan turnout, I think that sends a good statement to the Celtic board. Say, look, the women's game is here to stay. We're doing well with it. Get some more money into it, and let's have a serious tilt at trying to become one of Europe's big clubs.
No, you're right. Let's grow it. 100% agree with that. Talking about one of the world's biggest clubs, one of the world's greatest footballers, Danny McGrain, turned 73 years old yesterday. Now, Danny has been back at the club as a coach since Wim Jansen. Wow. So he's worked with every single coach manager from Wim to Ange, and he turned 73. Big happy birthday to Danny. But it brought back that wee story you told, remember, about Brendan Rodgers. And who pops up at the game on Sunday but Brendan Rodgers, Liam? What do you make of all that? Try to get his face back out there because he's looking for a job somewhere.
Where's the rat poison when you need it? Anyway, no, I'm not a fan of Brendan Rodgers, the person, but I am an admirer of Brendan Rodgers, the manager. He's done a lot of, he's had a lot of success with his style of football. But if you look at the pattern of his career, there's about an 18-month to 2-year window before other teams suss him out. Happened at Liverpool, happened at Celtic, and now it's happening at Leicester. That's just the way it goes. You get sussed out. And I think that, not a bad manager, but I certainly don't get this thing of like putting him up on the same level as Martin O'Neill or Jock Stein or anything like that. I really don't. He did well when he was here. Thank you for that. But nah, he's not my cup of tea, I'm afraid.
See the thing with that, Liam, right? This isn't just with hindsight. It's not just with hindsight. I remember the furore and everything about the excitement and all that about him coming to the club and 13,000 strong going to see him at the unveiling. Brilliant. Great scenes. Statement of intent. And I love the approach. I love the real increase in standards, bringing a lot of kind of English Premiership standards to our club, and I thought that was fantastic. But you're right in what you say. I don't put him on the same platform as O'Neill. I think O'Neill was an absolute game changer, and what we're seeing here under Ange Postecoglou is taking us in that direction again. And one of the biggest ways that you're able to judge a manager when you look back on their time at the club is what did they do in Europe. And you look at Martin O'Neill gave me as a Celtic fan the first ever bit of belief that we could do anything in Europe, anything. And when Brendan came in, I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're going to make a tilt at Europe. And by the way, I don't mean we're going to win the Champions League. Again, like a lot of these clubs you were talking about earlier, we need to know what is the level. Right, okay, so a Scottish club got to a Europa League final. Okay, we can do that. And then you've got another tournament that, you mentioned Moyes. West Ham are still in that, aren't they?
Yep.
So, there are tournaments that we can progress in terms of Europe. You want to do as well as possible in the Champions League. Did I ever believe once Brendan Rodgers was there that we could do something in Europe? The performances didn't allow me to believe that. And I don't just mean the first one. I just don't think we did make any kind of progress. Neil Lennon had some phenomenal results in Europe, as did Gordon Strachan. Absolutely brilliant results in Europe. Tell me a result that Rodgers had. A brilliant result, an emphatic result, a memorable result. A couple of draws against Man City. I don't think that, that pales into insignificance in many ways. And I think that looking over the next few seasons under Ange, that we will have some glorious moments in European football. I found it interesting that he popped up, and then the reaction of the fact that he was at the game. He was obviously there as a guest of the prominent businessman, Lord William Hawkey. I think he was his guest. He was certainly sitting next to him. And he might have just been up and he took the game in on the old hospitality. But I'm pretty sure he'd be looking for a job. But the reaction was interesting because I've not seen any Celtic fans who say, He's fine. He can come back whenever he wants and all this kind of stuff. That'll happen with Neil Lennon. I don't mean as an employed member of staff. I just mean, once the dust is settled, Liam, people look back on that moment and they say, all right, we've kind of softened and all the rest of it. But there's certain characters in the Celtic history where that will never happen. Do you think Brendan Rodgers is one of them?
Yeah, because, he, first of all, it's just common decency. You don't desert your team mid-season if you're a manager. You don't do that, right? If you want to go somewhere else, fine. Look, Wim Jansen, right? Wim Jansen, about 6 months into his Celtic spell, he realised he wasn't getting on with Jock Brown, and Fergus made it clear that Jock Brown wasn't going anywhere. So from that moment on, really, Wim's time was up. But like the consummate professional he stayed there and made sure we stopped the 10 before he went. Right?
He did. He completed the job. Absolutely.
Yep. Brendan Rodgers, the minute he got the sniff of a mediocre English team, he was out the door. Now, if he was just another manager, that would be fine. But this was Brendan Rodgers, who claimed to be the ultimate sell, who claimed to be a lifelong fan and all this other nonsense. Now, I'm not putting it on the same level, but the type of rhetoric that he was coming out with, it was a bit like, Celtic / Rangers / Hearts is the only team I've ever wanted to play for, Maurice Johnson. It was that level of BS.
Do you remember the front cover of the Not the View? And it was actually Paul Elliott, Celtic are only club I've got. Jack Anoski saying the same in Polish, and then it comes down to Le Petit Merde. Yes. It's interesting how we go from Brendan to him, with some fluidity. Maybe it's because both of them will never be welcome back at Celtic. Who knows? Robert Highland, welcome back to the show. You're talking about the Inverness fans. Yeah, there's no thought given to that. The travelling Inverness Galley fans coming down for an early kickoff on a Scottish Cup final. Absolutely. Paul McGurk says the same. They don't really think about football fans, do they? I want to talk about Jota because Jota, we were praying that he was going to be fit for the game, Liam, and then he obviously does what professional footballers do in the modern day, leading up to a big game. He
goes to the brazen head.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Brilliant. It was phenomenal to see. Absolutely brilliant to see. And we're all digging out our double denims ever since. I don't think we can pull it off as the bold Jota does. But then he goes out, there's a match winner again. And what I was talking about yesterday with Colin and JP was the fact that, that miss, the ball that rolled under his boot that Maeda plays in about 4 minutes before he scores, it doesn't allow that to affect his game. And he's as quick as Maeda to react to the situation. And he's still cool enough to put it away. He has becoming nothing. He's becoming a thorn in the side of this Rangers side. Every time we face them, he's the guy that's stepping up time and time again, Liam.
I think that he now terrifies them to the same extent Kyogo does, which is really saying something when you look at what Kyogo's done to them already this season. It's good that, traditionally we've had like one player that Rangers have been afraid of. Historically it was Henrik Larsson, then it was Shinsuke Nakamura, more recently it was the likes of Gary Hooper. But now it's Kyogo and Jota, I think. And if they don't do the job, then there's going to be, you've got Maeda coming through, you've got Matt O'Reilly, you've got Hatate. We've got goals coming from all over the pitch. It's a great position to be in. And again, the media can keep playing this false narrative that we are two evenly matched teams as much as they want, but we're not. We're just not. And to be honest, if I was a Rangers fan, and thank God I'm not, but if I was, I would say, look, that whole team needs to be ripped out and rebuilt. They need an Ange level of reconstruction before they can even be in a position to challenge us. But their own arrogance probably prohibits that from happening because they will not accept the season or two of mediocrity that it's going to take to build that up again.
You're right. And the thing as well, they're in a position where they don't really have the financial ability. They don't have the assets that they could maybe recycle. They just won't be able to do it. Now, in the In the meantime, Celtic are looking ahead to a world record, and that would be 8 trebles, which is a phenomenal accolade. And when you look back to what happened a couple of seasons ago, Liam, as difficult as it was to live through that, and obviously we covered it on a daily basis, as difficult as that was, it's now clear, looking back on it, that we needed that reset. We actually needed that reset, but we've come back stronger. So it was worth it, really, when you think about where we're headed under Ange.
And here's the thing, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but with the state we are in now, and the state our nearest rivals are in now, what's to say in 8 years' time we might not be having that same conversation again?
Put your money on the 10. You heard it here first. Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know it's night time over there. Absolutely brilliant to hear from you. And it's going to be great. You're going to get so many emails and people getting in touch with you. You are going to be the go-to when we come over to Japan. I've got to thank the almost 900 strong tuning in today on the live stream. Thank you very much for that. Give us a big thumbs up on the YouTube. It does help us on the channel. We've got a new show coming up, a new Acsom show. We're in the planning stages. It's going to look a little bit different from this, but that will be with you very, very soon. And it will be at least once weekly, and I might grow it from there as well. And it will be at night time. So I'm not sure what time that will be in your place, and maybe in the morning, Liam. Who knows? I can't work that out off the back of my head, on the top of my head. But thanks everybody for getting involved, and thank you once again to Liam Carrigan of Celtic Down Under for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.